everyone. Top of the hour, so we'll go ahead and get started. Like I said, my name is Tim Bryce, and I'm a member of the Southern Region Social Media team. And today we're going to be talking about Vost, which stands for, I believe, Virtual Operations Support Team, and then the T-Spotter. They're two different kinds of social media monitoring programs. Vost has its roots in the emergency management community, and T-Spotter has its roots as kind of a homegrown grassroots effort, kind of a social media monitoring. So these are third-party entities that can come alongside of the offices to help us to monitor social media. Terry Jones out of the Albuquerque office and Trevor Boucher out of the Nashville office will be talking about that today. Real quickly, just to let you guys know, one quick announcement. Hey! I'm really hugging myself there. We scheduled our live tweeting for non-weather events. That was supposed to be last week, and with all the weather and the live tweet that the headquarters was running, we decided to postpone that. So it's now been rescheduled for May 20th. So I'll let you guys know as we get closer on the details on that. I know that we'll probably do another train probably in June on StoryFi because all the offices can now have access to a StoryFi account. So those are the things that are in the works as far as social media goes. If you ever have an idea for a training or anything, let me know. We'll be happy to work with you and try to set something up. But now I'm going to hand things over to Terry Jones, who is a WCM out of Albuquerque, and he is going to talk about the Vost program. Terry?
Yes, great. Thanks, Tim. Hello, everyone. Let's get our screen. Can you tell me when you're up and showing, Tim, or someone?
You're almost there. Just go full screen. You'll be good. Beautiful.
Okay. So, as Tim said, my short presentation will be on the basics of Vost, which does stand for Virtual Operations Support Team. The V in Vost is often, I guess, misreferenced as volunteer, and it is virtual, and I've always, at least I've made that point, because I do the same thing. It's certainly made up of volunteers, but it's a virtual program. So I'm the information sharing facilitator today. I do want to acknowledge several folks, namely Scott Reuter and Kaz Milligan, both of whom are core members of the Vost Leadership Coalition, and Scott and Kaz put together most of the presentation material that I have. I also wanted to acknowledge our Oklahoma team, to include John Butler, Lloyd Colston, and also our own Rick Smith. And they are the brain trust behind the OK Vost. And I know Rick has some great success stories to share as well. And hopefully we can have some of that input. At least, I don't think Rick is on the call, but if he is, we can certainly share that with the group. I'd also like to kind of a shout out to Jeff Phillips, Marlita Reddy-Helmfelt, and also Cheryl Bledsoe. These are three individuals, my go-to folks in terms of Vost. And both Jeff and Mar are local to my CWA. And I had the opportunity to work with Cheryl when I was at the office in Spokane several years ago and before Vost really developed. But those three individuals, and I have their contact information here at the end. So. And it was actually Jeff Phillips, who's a local EM here in the Albuquerque area, that coined the term Vost back in March of 2011. That was right before we had our big fire season. And so really since 2011, the Vost concept has rapidly expanded to include, outside the Weather Service, but to include countries outside the U.S. And so it's, I think, a great success story within the EM community. And I've benefited just from the sheer fact that I'm in close proximity to Jeff and a lot of the work that he has done. So I think the motivation behind Vost is the fact that nowadays the public expects official use of social media streams. They expect EMs and increasingly our agency to monitor and respond to requests for information, especially during high-impact events. But as we all know, few organizations, to include the Weather Service, are really equipped to do this kind of social media monitoring and communication at scale and spanning, you know, a 24/7 operation. And so really that's where the Vost comes in. Neighbors helping neighbors is kind of the way I like to describe it. So let's just quickly kind of go through and define what a Vost is. It's one way for EMs and local NWS offices to help harness the power of social media. It's a team of trusted agents. You'll hear that term a lot, trusted agents, within Vost. And it's normally organized and directed. That directed is underscored because it's important to note that it's a Vost is activated or directed by municipal, county, or state EM entities. So the National Weather Service doesn't directly activate a Vost, per se. A Vost can help expand the ability to engage with the public, not only during a high-impact event, but well before, as well as after, during the response and kind of recovery phase of an event. And I think most importantly, this kind of the second to last bullet is a Vost can really help us spot trends in social media, monitor the public, and also amplify our official messages. And I think that's where, at least locally, we've had the greatest impact here in Albuquerque in terms of having these individuals, you know, amplify warnings, you know, all kinds of information that we're putting out there. So that's kind of what a Vost is, in short. And so why a Vost? Well, as I said earlier, the volume of information that's not necessarily directed to the NWS about an ongoing event that's available out there on social media can be staggering. I think we've all probably have had cases now here in the last 2 years where you go back and do post-mortems and you realize how much information was out there that wasn't making it to the local WFO. And so a Vost efforts in distilling some of this most critical information in real time has proven useful at, or at least for the WFO operations. So, and as I mentioned, Vosts are activated by EMs, much in the same way that Skywarn is activated at a local level and actually managed through a very similar process. How can a Vost assist in WS? Well, there's 3 words: monitor, curate. Another word for curate would be to oversee and to make some filtering decisions, if you will. And again, to amplify the message. And it's not just, we've had cases where, you know, we've had individuals pass along requests for information from official sources that we may have missed. We've had problems with no weather radio noted, for example. If our web pages go down, product distribution, that sort of thing. So it's not necessarily just passing critical weather information, but it's the whole infrastructure in terms of providing that feedback. And so that's also one component of it. So again, monitoring a situation, kind of overseeing data management, and then amplifying official messages that are coming from our offices. Here's an example back in 2012, a local example that, you know, I was initially a little bit hesitant to not work, that's not the right word, but to engage with our local Vost for a couple of reasons. But this was one event. Every year there's a very large outdoor event in Santa Fe that I've been providing support through the local EOC. And in this case, back in 2012, it was I did it remotely, and I did it through the Vost. So the Vost was stood up to help the local EOC manage their event. Fortunately, weather wasn't a huge factor on this particular day, but I wanted to point out that in the case of a Vost, they work within the structure of ICS, the ICS framework. And so it's very, I guess, interesting to me that it's very organized. You can see here an example of the ICS Form 204 that's been modified for a Vost activation, but includes assignment lists, all various hashtags that we would monitor, and then ways to log and catalog this information as we go through the event. So this was, I've actually done this twice now. It's worked great because it's a way to, I guess, work with a Vost to manage a support role for an EOC, even multiple EOCs that are activated. You can actually work with one Vost that would help manage that information. And so there's ways that, it's a two-way street. So certainly a Vost, there's lots of upside in terms of helping the local WFO, but you can reverse that and also assist their team during these kind of what I would call or refer to as a mini-scale kind of activation. So I would say that the activation aspect of a Vost is probably the most challenging. Locally, Jeff and Mar serve as my team leads for the Vost, but we've really sat down and had some conversations about recruiting other individuals, because that's a must. I think to have an effective local Vost implementation, you're going to have 3 or 4 of these trusted team leads that you can coordinate with, and because at that point, once they become activated, then Jeff or Mar in turn tap into their social network and their resources to kind of build up the team to a level to scale it up to a level that's needed. And so again, the local WFO does not and actually cannot directly activate a Vost. There are some pretty strict rules that govern volunteers working directly for the National Weather Service, for example. And I don't think it's just the National Weather Service, for a federal agency. So there's some pretty clear definitions that need to be worked out in that realm, but nonetheless, it's similar to how we would manage a Skywarn activation through an amateur radio club, Aries, for example. And so a lot of those same protocols would apply to a Vost. Now, one thing that we have done, and actually I should point out that the Norman office set up a chat room for their Vost. It's been probably over a year. They were the first in the Weather Service. I set up a Vost chat room earlier this year. It's a private room, but the idea is to share across the various chat rooms that we access. And so there's been some concerns in the past that we necessarily don't want information shared in an all-access room. So, for example, here at Albuquerque, we have ABQ Chat, which is our all-inclusive chat room for our partners. And then separately, we have ABQ Vost set up so that people like Jeff and Mar and some of our other trusted agents that have access to chat or have been granted access to chat can filter information from social media platforms and so forth, and then share that all within the confines of NWS Chat. And so we have not had a lot of experience yet with this. As I said, it's only been set up for about 4 months now. But I think as we get deeper into this, there's a lot of good communication tools, I think, that will be external to the Weather Service that a lot of the Vost coalition folks are getting word of. And so this would probably, I would say, be one first step in terms of maintaining that communication, so that if you do have an event that's rapidly developing and someone's in this chat room, that's one way that you can at least start to balance the information flow. Now, the importance of having both local and non-local Vost members is important. And again, this was an idea that at first I was lukewarm to. But I know that Trevor has some additional thoughts and ideas on expanding this topic internally to the Weather Service, and really from a Vost standpoint within the EM community, this is a big deal. So when we've had incidents in the West with wildfires where a Vost has been stood up, activated, and we have individuals from New Zealand, Germany, the UK, Canada, that are all participating in a virtual setting, but providing very good content and feedback and that sort of thing. So, having local members who have strong location and cultural knowledge is good, but again, having folks outside the area often are needed and are needed to stand up an event and to maintain the event if it lasts 1, 2, 3 days, that sort of thing. Let's see, I'm getting to my last couple of slides here. This is just a graphic to illustrate what's called the back channel or non-public resources as opposed to the public-facing resources. So basically, this has been a huge bonus for our area. This is a case where we might have a very small-scale Vost in place, and those individuals, rather than saying amplifying messages and being active in Twitter and Facebook, what they're actually doing is more documenting the event for us. And we've had, I guess it was last year, we had all of our tweets were logged, cataloged, and this was before we have a lot of the analytical tools that we're using today. And so our Vost team would go through and provide a summary in an Excel spreadsheet of tweets, Facebook posts, that sort of thing. And so we could use that in turn during a post-mortem or to try and say, okay, this worked okay, this is an area that we need to focus on, that sort of thing. So that's one big part of a Vost is these back channel resources to include archiving, the analytics, searching, file sharing, all that sort of thing. And as you would imagine, the Vost teams, everyone that at least that I deal with are top-notch and are up on the latest and greatest in terms of social media platforms, and they're always looking for new and innovative ways to track information, share information, catalog information. Tim mentioned Storify, and that's kind of an exciting, I'm excited to see that launch up here locally, but all these other platforms that are used and are shared. So a lot of the stuff that I've learned through social media has been through my external Vost connections. Always good stuff there. So as far as sources and reference material, I would direct you to these individuals specifically. And I won't go through the list here, but any one of these individuals will be great contacts. Cheryl Bledsoe, who's actually the EM temporarily, I guess for another month or so. She's in the Portland, Oregon area. She has or maintains the Vost Leadership Coalition. They have a monthly conference call. And I believe anyone who is interested in participating, I know several of you have been on those calls. She's an excellent resource and would be delighted to have input and perhaps more importantly have you share any local success stories that you may have, whether or not it's Vost related, because at the end of the day, the concept of Vost isn't necessarily new, but a lot of the information and where we're going as an agency is. And so this is a great way to connect outside our agency with a lot of key individuals that are doing some great work. So, well, Tim, I think with that, that's the end of my slide set. Did you want to just hold questions until the end?
Well, I have one quick question for you, and it just pertains directly to Vost. If there's somebody in an office out there who's interested in looking further into, developing a Vost in their area, what would you suggest that they do?
Well, the first thing I would say is work through a local EM, or at least someone that has a local EM connection who is active or big into social media. That was my serendipitous route through Vost is that, I'd worked, Jeff Phillips was the state EOC director here in New Mexico previously, and so I've known Jeff for many years, but it wasn't until really 2009 that we, got together and, Jeff had a strong interest in social media, and so that's really where that connection formed. And so that would be my first suggestion is to hit up one of your local EMs who's big in social media. And then once you get to that connection or make that contact, and I think going through, again, Cheryl, Jeff, Scott, any of these folks would be the next, maybe the second step. As I said, John Butler, Lloyd Colston, as well as Rick Smith, they have some great advice, and they actually have some Google Docs that they'll share with you on the process that they went through to stand up their OK Vost. And they're a good resource.
All right, very good. Why don't we hold off the rest of the questions until the end, because I think Trevor may cover some things as well. So, Carrie, if you can go ahead and hand things over to Trevor now, and we'll have Trevor talk about the T-Spotter program, which is not as, I would say, not as structured as Vost, but more of a homegrown, grassroots kind of effort for monitoring social media.
All right, thanks, Tim. Is everyone seeing my screen now?
I do.
Okay, great. Well, yeah, basically I'm going to pick up where Carrie left off in the sense that the T-Spotter concept is very much like a Vost, and in fact, I didn't even know what a Vost was until a few weeks ago, and the more and more that we talked and discussed this talk, the more I realized that it's somewhat the same principle. But the T-Spotter, a little bit of the T-Spotter background, it came from the idea of the amateur radio networks and Skywarn spotter activation is something that Carrie already talked about. But more specifically, you'll see up there, the T-Spotter is actually a hashtag, but it goes a lot more in depth than just the hashtag. Any office can generate a Twitter hashtag for their reports, as we've seen with the WX report, and a number of other offices have experimented with unique CWA-centric type of hashtags to submit all their reports. And while that's good, because it gives us at least one place to have to start sifting through reports, it still can be very overwhelming in the events that we have major events. And so there still needs to, there's certainly more that we could do in order to quality control the reports that come in, because as we all know, being familiar with Twitter, that those reports that do come in, a vast majority of them are not useful. So we need to have an efficient way of doing them. This talk is actually very much like one that we did at the Weather Warnings and Communications Conference back in June or July. That was here in Nashville, and it was talking about an effective means of integrating Twitter-based reports to the National Weather Service while enhancing public severe weather awareness. So one of the aspects that we really push here is how it increases the amount of awareness throughout our spotter community and the overall community. For those that are not necessarily spotters, this information is being outwardly shared as well as an aspect of inwardly sharing reports and things of that sort. And I do want to give special thanks to David Drobny, who was one of the individuals that started the entire concept here in Nashville. And Drobny is not a meteorologist. He is a lawyer, actually, here in the area. And he's just a very devoted spotter that's been to a number of spotter trainings. We have a very close working relationship with him. And when he came to us with this idea, we had to listen just because of the network that he had set up. So let's see if I can move forward here. Sorry. There we go. So T-Spotter, like I said, is not just a hashtag. It's essentially the Skywarn or amateur radio concept all brought into Twitter. And Twitter specifically, this is not, as Carrie mentioned, the Vost concept can be used for multiple different social media platforms, but T-Spotter is specific to Twitter. And the reason it is specific to Twitter is because that is where the conversations take place. I like to say that on Facebook, it's a lot like using a bulletin board, because all the information goes up there for things that are upcoming, and then information for things that had already occurred. But Twitter is where the conversation is taking place. So if you're trying to get information about what's happening at the event, you need to be listening to the conversations that are taking place, which is what Twitter is. And when I say QCing of reports, I do mean quality controlling, but it's also quality crowdsourcing. So in this case, the reports that are coming to us are going through a process where people's eyes are on it, and they're quality controlling data that we would have to spend time doing otherwise if we didn't have this network in place. And I'll explain that here in a little bit. The T-Spotter concept is based off the fact that we have local coordinators or volunteers, much like the Vost. The coordinators cover one or two counties, and there's two things that they do. The first thing is outward information. They provide hyper-local nowcasting to their followers, specifically for severe weather. And so they would have, say, for Nashville, Davidson County. So one individual would have Davidson County and, say, Williamson County. And that's all they're responsible for. That coordinator would only be responsible for any storms that occur in their area. So we have another one for a neighboring county, Wilson County, another one for Rutherford County. And all of these coordinators work together in the sense that they only govern they only provide outward information for their specific county. And they're responsible for generating reports that come to their specific counties. So you can already see in an event like this that we can compartmentalize all the reports that come into specific counties. So another thing that's a benefit with this is that when we communicate with these coordinators that are trained by us, we can then solicit reports for specific counties. So if there's a bunch of isolated storms in our CWA and one happens to be over Rutherford County, we can go to the Rutherford County coordinator and say, do you have any reports? These are the reports we're looking for. This is what we expect to see. Can you get reports along those lines or any reports that are associated with that storm? So what the individuals do, the coordinators do, is they get trained by us. They come here somewhat, about biannually, but sometimes more, depending on how much severe weather we have. And we train them to send us reports based off the criteria that we would give out to skyward spotters. The 50-knot winds and core-size hail, things like that, and tell them, okay, sift through the reports that come across the T-spotter hashtag, and then there find out which ones are not only meet criteria, but make sense. They're not fake reports. They're not reports that are questionable. These are reports that are verified on radar. They're in the right place at the right time, and then they are sent to us. And all of these coordinators are volunteers. They are not meteorologists. They are all individuals who are living in this county and are very much sold on the fact that they're doing a public service. And it's not like they don't have some sort of benefit out of this. Their Twitter hashtag has a significant amount of followers. Our Nash Severe Weather individual has over 20,000 followers. So he has quite a few people that rely on him for updated, nowcasting, hyper-local severe weather information. And he provides a service that we cannot provide, but is very valuable to the user, which is he can provide, this storm is coming to this intersection, and it has this associated with it, says the National Weather Service. And so, in that sense, we can't cater to every single person that is within our CWA, but these individuals can cater to the people in their county. So they provide a service that we can't necessarily provide, but they don't do meteorological analysis. They simply say, okay, this storm has this kind of hail in it. We know that looking at the structure of the storm, based off of what we were trained by the Weather Service, that it has probably the likelihood of having large hail. And based off the reports that they get, they can cater what they nowcast to these individuals. So the T-spotter hashtag, it was just that hashtag itself is just the name that we're calling it here, but you could have that hashtag, whatever you want to call it, in any CWA, and have whatever name you would like associated with it. We picked T-spotter for two reasons, one for Tennessee, but one for Twitter. And so these are our Twitter spotters that are around. And I should clarify that the T-spotter can be used by anyone, even people that are not spotters. So any individual that's within any of these counties that uses Twitter and are familiar with the T-spotter hashtag, which we've been advertising left and right, then they can append the T-spotter hashtag to their tweets with whatever weather information they want, and it will go to this hashtag. And then these coordinators not only will vet the process of, okay, these originated from my county, but they will also be something that's quality controlled, and they will go through the hashtag. So you may already be asking, well, that seems like you're just putting a hashtag in one place and then the meteorologist has to look at it. Actually, these individuals look at the hashtag, then they submit reports directly into WS chat. So from the sense of the meteorologist or the forecaster, it's completely transparent. Nothing, no extra workload is required to get the quality-controlled reports to us. And in the sense of decision support, this provides real-time, like I said, hyper-local storm information to the individuals in sort of a mini or hyper-local decision support service to the individual. So if somebody says, hey, I'm going to go leave my house to pick up my child in this part of the county, they would go to their coordinator and say, do you think that looks bad? They may then ask us, hey, we're wondering how bad the storm is. We could answer that question, and he could disseminate that to everybody who might be affected by it. And then because of that, it increases public severe weather awareness, and it does that because people are generating a conversation about severe weather before, during, and after the event. So on Twitter, when you have these people to talk to, they will talk back with you and respond to almost every tweet that comes their way. And when that happens, people continue to have conversation, and inherently their awareness of that situation goes up. So not only are people getting the information and contributing to the warning process, but they're also becoming more aware and then in and of itself becoming more safe. And this would not be possible without an avenue to share all that information in one place. And in that case, NWS chat is what it is. Much like what Carrie was saying with the Vost, it's very important to have a place to coordinate all this information. And we don't have a specific chat room associated to this, but we use our own chat room already to have these discussions within our normal sources. So we don't have an extra tab to have somebody keep continuing to looking at. And one question we get often is, does that clog up your chat traffic? And the answer is no, because in those meetings with our coordinators, we tell them the ethics of using NWS chat, what that means when you put a report in, that they can be seen by the media, that they can be seen by emergency managers. And it's important to have quality-controlled information that you know of beyond the shadow of a doubt. And if that goes in there, then the traffic goes down quite a bit. And they've been trained also to private message us in the event that they have a question that may not want to be seen by lots of people. So they know how to use NWS chat and the ethics of using it themselves. And because of that being done in our chat room, like I said, it's transparent to the forecaster. So you don't even really need to know what the T-spotter concept is other than they're better reports than a public report. And they can use those in a severe weather event and not even have to worry about it. They can end up sending in LSRs because it's appended to T-spotter and they know that's a good report. And so, like I said, the background is it started with this guy, David Rodney, and he's the person that runs the NAS Severe Weather Handle. And how it came to our attention was during a flash flood event a few years ago, where he already had a pretty large network set up. I'd say somewhere in the 5,000 to 10,000 range followers for just only 2 counties. So that's quite a bit of people following his information. And he would take screenshots of like Radar Scope or GR Analyst or whatever he had available to him and tweet that information outward to people and say, hey, this storm, according to the Weather Service, has this type of hail and this type of wind. So you may not want to go to this park, or you may not want to go out driving if you're in this part of the county. And so because of that, people were like, hey, that's great. That's information that I could practically use all the time, rather than the blanket, well, you may have a threat between this time and this time in the general Middle Tennessee area. So people really appreciate that, and so they would continue to follow him. And that information was done without us knowing until he came to us with this idea and said, hey, I have this many followers. Why don't we share this information? And frequently, we get that request a lot, so that we didn't think that this was much different than things that we had seen before, where people are hoarding their reports and basically wanting us to rely on them. And that's not what he was asking for. All he was asking for was access to chat so that he can put the information he's getting into that chat, and so he can relay that report to the right person. And as he put it, which really made us understand that he's doing a public service, is that what good is it that I get the report if I can't share it with people that are helping people save lives? So that kind of spoke to us really clearly that he's really believing in doing a public service. And now it's not just him. Now there's a number of individuals across Middle Tennessee that do the same service. And because of his idea and this concept that we've adopted, it's become really popular to the point where a large portion of our reports come from the T-spotter hashtag. And here's an example of that data I was talking about, wherein he had a tweet from somebody who may not even been aware of what the Weather Service was. And he said, hey, look, in Mallory Lane at Cool Springs, it's impassable. He had a photo link to it, and when you click on the photo link, there were a number of different reports that associated with flash flooding, and this one was a different one. But these are the type of reports that we were not getting. And because of that, we needed to make sure that we were getting information that was important to us. And the only way that he could communicate with us was via Twitter, which at the time was not set up efficiently for us to get those reports. So then it became apparent to us that maybe we should give this guy a listen and say, okay, well how can we use this concept that you have to enhance what we're trying to do here locally and limit our workload of having to look for all these types of reports just in the basic Twitterverse. So the T-spotter concept was agreed upon, where we need to definitely have a hashtag to funnel all of these reports into one place and not have to keep looking at multiple different feeds. So all of our reports were advertised to go to this hashtag, and in our spotter trainings, on our websites, on our Facebook, on our Twitter, we would ask people, if you have a report, submit it to T-spotter. If you have a report, submit it to T-spotter. And he would do the same thing on his Twitter feed, where he would say, hey, the NWS needs your reports, send them to hashtag T-spotter so they can see them. And then he realized that there was 2 types of jobs that we would really have to do. The disseminating information outward to the people that follow him, to give the reports to him so that he can receive information back. And as he puts it, the importance of this concept is to give and take. People people are not going to give you information unless they receive some sort of information back. It relies on being a symbiotic relationship. And because he's very adamant about responding to people's questions, doing public service, the reports now flow all the time, everywhere. And it's not just in those counties either. Now the reports are coming from multiple counties that don't even have coordinators. So then it became important for him to end up having a helper, and now he has another individual named Will, who all his job is looking at the T-Spotter hashtag. He has one job, and that's to look at the reports, coordinate that with the radar, make sure that they're legit reports, and send them to us. So they have two individuals that do two very different jobs in this idea. And so to hammer this home, the T-Spotter process works in this way. The coordinators provide real-time storm information, that's warning information, storm updates, developments, tornadoes on the ground, any information that we need to submit to everybody. The same information gets sent out and repackaged, sent out everywhere. And it's very important to know that he's not doing his own type of analysis here. He is repackaging information comes directly from the weather service. And he does it in a 140-character limit way to do it, which is not always easy, as you know. Trying to issue a severe thunderstorm warning with multiple counties and trying to do it on Twitter is very difficult to do. And now he's got a process done where he can do that very easily. And these coordinators react with their followers, or interact with their followers, and there's that back and forth. And retweets of individual warnings based off this have been retweeted to 100,000 people, in some cases in just seconds. He's developed such a rapport here in the Middle Tennessee area that he has country music stars that follow him, Tennessee Titans players that follow him. I believe even LeBron James follows him. But LeBron James follows us, so I would say that we're up there too as far as our exposure goes. And then his followers provide real-time ground truth to us, which I've said multiple times. And the coordinators then, this individual will, and the other people in the other counties, will submit the reports that are verifiable and quality controlled directly into our chat, so our forecasters see them and not have to worry about the quality of that report. And this is what it looks like in our chat room. This is a screenshot from our chat logs. And you can see Media-William T. Minkoff, that's one of the coordinators there. And he had said, this was during a snow event, where he was providing links, photos, geotag reports directly into our chat room, and indicating there again via T-Spotter that that's what the report was. So as far as we're concerned, we read that and we say, oh, here, there's Will again. He has a report of this temperature at this time. Here's what the picture looks like of what the ground looks like right now, and it came from T-Spotter, so we can trust it. And so real quickly, we have a report that we need to be situationally aware, for one, in the snow event, but in some cases with reports, we have pictures that verify exactly what we need. So these coordinators, you may say, how do you trust these regular spotters that are out in the field and giving that information and trusting that they can do the analysis to make sure these quality controlled reports are tracked quality controlled. And so these coordinators are recruited at workshops, through our spotter trainings, through their own Twitter feeds that they send to us and say, hey, come take a look at us. And there's two individuals that right now look at it. One is David, because he runs the master, the largest account, but then us. So we're always keeping an eye on potential volunteers. And the first step is meeting the WFO. We have to know who you are and see if you are somebody that is trustworthy. So we invite these individuals to our office and put them through a training that is very specific, radar training and ethics training that we had talked about before, and make sure that these people can do the job as asked. And then the second step is the completion of the required training, which is basic advanced spotter training, software setup and configuration, radar interpretation like we just mentioned, and how the operations of T-Spotter works through David and the Weather Service. So people come here, they get a rigorous training on the ethics of using chat, how to use Twitter efficiently, what hashtags to follow, all of those things. Make sure that they're putting those things in practice, and then they can start their trial period. And that's really the important part, is making sure that we keep an eye on them for a while. And that's the same information that I just put, so I'll move forward. But then the other half of the problem is not after we train these people, we have to get the word out to our followers to use it. And so we needed to advertise the T-Spotter concept. So we were telling the EMAs that if you see these chats, in the media, that if you see these chats in our NWS chat, then that means that these are coming from these trained individuals, so they can be trusted. And in this case, we were doing a media workshop, ESC briefings, anywhere that they can get that information and we can share that information out, we were doing it. And we got a little boost from the Associated Press back in 2011 that did a story on this concept and how it was used to enhance our awareness. And so that really helped get some followers, and I think that's where most of the famous people jumped on board. But we also did it here with our web headlines, Facebook, Twitter, all those things, and continual reminders to submit reports to the hashtag. We do that still. You never know who's just moved here, and they may not know that concept since it's unique to only a few places. So we want to submit that report, and now it's part of our social media training that before an event takes place or starts, to remind people to use the hashtag to submit reports. And so time is given at spotter talks for some of these coordinators. So if we go to a county and do a spotter talk, and that coordinator participates, it will give that coordinator some time at the spotter talk to inform people on how to be more involved in his program. And because of that, they get to meet their coordinator, and they get to develop a relationship. And so the relationship with the Weather Service is helped by doing so. The trust is built through meeting people, and that credibility is increased. But last but not least, as all of us know, if anything dealing with social media, the severe weather is the best marketing tool. So any time that we have some major event come through here, we get a giant jump in our exposure for T-Spotter and Facebook and everything. But that helps us get followers when they see what service that ends up being provided. And we did not do the survey. This was actually done by the at-NASH severe weather people. They did a survey monkey and shared this information with us. And one of the questions was, I access Twitter primarily through what means? And you can see there that the first three instances there are some form of mobile device, which is very important. Even though we just updated our mobile site to be very app-like, that we didn't really have an app. And this is an instance where we do have something like an app when we submit something via Twitter, and then that comes directly to us. So while the concept works very much like an app, this ends up meaning that people are using this mobilely. People are using this at work, while they're in the car, whether they're wherever they happen to be, and submitting this in a very fast way. Plus, that helps us get reports that are right there in the field. We got ground truth by the pure definition of it. And then you can see that the minority there is really the home computers and office computers. So while we do have some users that use that primarily that way, the vast majority is mobile devices, which is very important. And some of the other results here that we did internally, we found out that 24% increase in the chat reports that we've had over 2011 when this started. So from the beginning of 2011 to the end of 2011, we had a 24% increase in the average amount of chats that we would have per event. And this was directly associated with the development of the T-Spotter concept. We have a huge increase in how many photo reports we get, which, especially in winter weather, is very important to actually say whether or not 3 inches is really 3 inches or not. And then the media, which includes the Weather Channel, amongst all of our local media and many other avenues, are using T-Spotter pictures and using them frequently. We have people that are in our chat that are finding these photos and been shared on national news more times than we can count. And now we have over 26,000 followers that, of our T-Spotter feed, and that number grows and grows every single day. Here are some of the pictures that have been associated with T-Spotter reports. So this is not just, oh, hey, it's raining outside and here's a pretty rainbow. These are actually reports that we can use to verify in storm data. And sometimes this has been a funnel cloud, as you can see on the right. Sometimes this has been a tornado. Sometimes this has been damaged photos, and sometimes it's been extremely large hail. So this has been used in all sorts of different ways to get us reports that we otherwise may not have gotten. And so what do we do with this? We continue to move forward to try to get every one of our counties represented in the T-Spotter concept. Right now we have, I'd say, right around 8 or 10 of them. Our largest population areas are currently covered, which is really important. But in our less populated areas, it's more difficult finding people that are, for one, trustworthy, but two, are able to build a network that is largely followed. So there's still some more work being done with that. We do have some other counties right now that are in the process of being vetted, where we are watching their feeds and making sure that they're dedicated public service people. But that's to come as we continue to grow this. And we're continually adding additional volunteers to our to existing feeds. And what I mean by that is that here in Hootsuite, we've actually developed a tab that we can follow each one of our individual T-Spotter coordinators per county. And so if for instance, our chat went down or anything like that, we can use this to go back in and see what kind of conversations are taking place. This also helps to keep aware of the situation and what's going on in locations, like if sirens go off, if the power has gone out, things of that sort. We can monitor these feeds and see what people are talking about within their individual counties as it pertains to severe weather. So that's what I've got. I've kind of jumped through that pretty quickly, so if you have any questions, I don't know how we're going to do that structure, but I guess that's going to be at this point. But if you have any specific questions for us, I can, myself or my WCM Tom Johnson, or even David Drobny can answer those questions for you in the emails that are provided here. So that's what I got for you. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks a lot, Trevor. I know both of these programs are kind of unique to the areas that they're, especially the T-Spotter where it's grassroots, but I'm hoping that you can take some ideas and maybe from a weather office in the area, kind of run with these ideas and try them out. The Vost concept may work, may not, or may work for you. The T-Spotter may work for your area. You're just going to have to see what works best for you. So now, does anyone have any questions for Carrie or for Trevor? No questions. Just trying to think. Trevor, David had already set this program up before you guys got going with him, right? He had a large following ahead of time.
Yes, he did. He was doing essentially the service minus providing the reports to us. So that once we became aware of it, it took a lot of convincing on our part because we get that request a lot. But seeing just the sheer volume that he had at that point means that we just couldn't ignore it because a lot of information was not coming to us that could have come to us.
Right, and I think that speaks to know who your power users are. You know, we like to send out a lot of information, but there's in every area there's a power user. There's somebody out there who's got a following who, you know, that if they retweet something, it's seen by thousands of people. So find out who your power users are, and it's hopefully they're very civic-minded and they're very focused on the weather, and partner with them and try to have them help you and you help them. I think the thing that really helped the T-Spotter program take off even further was allowing the coordinators into the NWS chat so that they could get access to the information the weather office there in Nashville was providing, and also so the weather office in Nashville could get the information that they were providing directly. So I think that was a symbiotic, if I pardon the phrase, there, relationship there that really helped to move that partnership forward. All right, last chance. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry if you had already addressed it. I was only in on this part-time, but I was wondering with the amateur radio community, this is Pat in IWX, Northern Indiana, if there was some resistance that the coordinators were using the last hop as the NWS chat versus an amateur radio operator in the operations area that were collecting the reports, and how did that go? What were any stumbling blocks there, and do you still have, or did you, and do you still have operators actually report into the weather office?
Was that question for me?
Sure.
Sorry. I wasn't sure. So to understand your question correctly, you're asking if the amateur radio operators had any pushback to having coordinators doing the Twitter service?
Yeah, instead of being strictly amateur radio into the office.
Not really. Another thing I may not have said is that these coordinators are working from home. They're not within the Weather Service office themselves. But the amateur radio individuals that are here, a lot of them use this service. They pretty much follow the same way, and some of them, especially older individuals, they don't necessarily use Twitter, but a lot of them do, and because of that, they've been using the T-Spotter concept. We have a pretty strong working relationship with all of them, so many of them know each other, so no, not really.
Hey, Tim?
Yes.
Hey, this is Rick and Norman. I just wanted to chime in real quick. The person in our area that's the biggest proponent for Vost, and actually our Vost team leader is also one of the biggest proponents for amateur radio. So we do both, and he likes both, and so it's not an either-or thing. It's just a supplement to the information we currently have.
Yeah, and I would agree that we have amateur radio operators because there's people who are dedicated to using ham radios to distribute weather information. It only makes sense to have people monitoring social media who are dedicated to distributing and receiving weather information via social media. It's just a different communication form, but it's the same concept.
Hey, Trevor, this is, go ahead, Tim.
Come on, go ahead.
It's just a comment, Trevor. This is Eric from Binghamton. Just a great presentation. I help with the Spotter program up here on social media, and we're not doing quite as well with Twitter, but I'm very, very excited having helped with the Spotter program a lot, trying to integrate both of them after seeing this presentation. This is a great job. Very, very nice. Thank you very much.
And, Eric is a good example. They're an office that, rocks with Facebook, and that they're working on building their Twitter program, where your office may have a great Twitter program and have a kind of a lower following on Facebook. Social media is just you just have to find what works for your office, what works for your followers and your fans, and then work within that area. Today was kind of Twitter focused with these two programs. I know the Vost program is actually very inclusive. They'll set up, for the emergency management community, they'll set up Facebook pages and Twitter accounts for some of these bigger events, and just help to, like Carrie said, to amplify the message that the emergency managers want sent out. That's not something we're looking for them to do, but they are very versed in social media. So if you can tap into either of these, your power users that report weather or a Vost coordinator, I think it'd be worth exploring for your office.
Yeah, Tim, just to comment on that, actually our Facebook following is pretty large as well. I believe our social media guy here was saying that we're like 14th or something like that. We have over 20,000 followers, and really we use that to funnel people to Twitter as well, which might help if you have a strong amount of people that are using Facebook. Is if you want to promote something within Twitter, you can continually say, hey, all you're posting here, you can also use this on Twitter, and that gets that word out to at least feed some things into Twitter if you prefer to using that way. But we've been doing that frequently, where we'll post before an event and say, hey, you can submit your reports here on Facebook, but you can also do them on Twitter if you would like to do that as well. So
cross-posting, cross-promotion. Any other question? All right. Here and now, remember 2 weeks, we'll be talking live tweeting. I want to thank Trevor, and a big thank you to Carrie, who's on midnight shifts, for getting up early and giving us these great presentations today. As always, hopefully we'll see if the recording came out, but I'll make the files available to everyone after the presentation today. So thanks, everyone, and have a great rest of the day. See you later. Bye-bye.